What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 262 of Opinions May Vary. I am your host, JR. I have my co-host with me, Alex.
Hello.
Joining us again this week, the fearsome foursome once again, our pal Joe.
Hey there.
Our other pal Colin.
Yush.
Oh, gang is right back where we started.
Damn, it feels good to be back in studio. I am excited, and it's going to be wonderful, guys.
Last week, we promised a sort of a part two of sorts. Last week we started talking about PAX, but there's four of us, and there's a lot to say about PAX, so we already went pretty far over last week, so this week we're going to talk about the rest of it. Last week we focused mainly on like the show itself, panels that we saw, the shows that we saw, the people that we met, vendors, etc. Like the real meat and potatoes, you know. This week we're going to be talking about the games that we played, because ultimately, we go to PAX to play games. We played a lot of them. So this episode, this is our part two of our 2017 PAX coverage here. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, just go listen to it. It's really good. It's good stuff. Really good stuff. You should brush your teeth to it. This week, you don't brush your teeth to podcasts?
You're not supposed to brush your teeth for more than 2 minutes.
Yeah, you'll be brushing for an hour and a half.
My gums are bleeding, but I know a lot about PAX now.
But boy, are you entertained. So this is our part two. This is number 2 for our PAX coverage. We're going to dive right in because I imagine we have a lot to say about the games that we played. Where do we even start?
Few statements to make. I'm excited about that.
Where do we even start?
I don't know. We don't. Let's just end it.
I got it. Let's start last year. You guys went and told...
That's going way back.
You guys came back to tell me that Dead by Daylight is the Alex game.
Yep.
It is. I got in line. I played it. I was the killer. I killed everyone.
Now, was that happenstance, or did you volunteer to be the killer?
It's a good story.
Ooh.
I was waiting in line. There was a girl in front of me, somewhere late teens, early 20s. And then there was a group of 3 teenage boys behind me. And so we all got chosen to go up and be in the same group that would go play the game. So there's 4 survivors, 1 killer. And the 3 boys all volunteered to not be killer.
Uh-huh.
They wanted to be survivor. And that kind of made me skeptical. It was is the killer a bad person to play? Are they choosing
Yeah, Alex, they're the killer.
Morally there's something.
There's an emptiness in their soul.
I don't understand. It felt great to me.
This feels
but
right.
I
as
wasn't
he
sure.
wrings a woman's neck and hangs her from a meat hook.
If
This
there's-
machete weight feels right in my hand.
So many machetes.
This must be what normal people feel like.
I wasn't sure if there's some kind of game mechanic that makes it's 4 against 1 if they have an advantage of some kind. So I just thought they were choosing to take the advantage because I wasn't really sure if it was equal or not.
You seen a horror movie, dude?
A couple.
Advantage. The high school kids.
When I watch Halloween, I think Lori's really got the upper hand.
Yo,
here.
I want to play as a camp counselor. They're OP as fuck.
But you're one of many.
These sleeping kids totally are going to win. They're dream warriors.
Oh, dude, you don't want to be them. You want to be the high kid or the drunk guy, and then you're fine.
Oh, man.
Just go
How are
swimming
these
in the
horror
lake.
jokes working for you? Pretty good?
Not bad. You're doing good.
Nice,
I
nice.
like them.
There's some good tropes.
I'm amused. So it came down to this girl or me, and the guy working the booth was he's well, who wants to be the killer? And I was well, it'd be funny if she was the killer. I'd be fine with that, equal opportunity and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But she's I don't really care. And we kind of looked at each other for a moment, and the guy's it's you. I'm okay.
Alex violently volunteers to be the killer.
Alex, who already looks like a stand-in for Jason. If you were oh, by the way, I was actually a stunt double on, Jason Takes Manhattan.
I'd believe
be
it.
oh, yeah, that's fair.
You've already given the ages for these people, but I still envision them as being 10-year-olds. And so it's just these 4 10-year-olds, and then Alex is yeah, you're the killer. I'm sorry.
That guy's scary.
They had a row that was PC, and they had a row that was PlayStation. But it's not openly released for PlayStation just yet.
Do we know when it's going to be?
I
this game
didn't
is
think to ask at the
sweet.
time.
I mean, if they have a build for it, it must be hopefully coming soon.
Hopefully soon, yeah. Really.
We all going to get it? I'll get
Alex
it.
will at least.
I'll play
You
with
and
you
me.
guys.
And what they do, they sit you down, and if you haven't played before, they don't really tell you what choice to make, because you get to choose, like, there's the 6 killers, the 6 bad guys. It's like, and they say just choose whoever looks more interesting to you. And they have one called The Shape, and that basically looks like Mike Myers. And there's like a nurse one and some others. There's a hillbilly kind of
nurse.
thing. And I chose the Wraith because there was one of him walking around. So they had 2 people in costume as the killer characters. And I was like, I haven't seen anyone use him yet while I was waiting in line, so I figured I'll give it a shot.
Give the rest of the audience a show.
Yeah, and that's when
the
guy will explain like what each character's special powers are. Because if he tells you ahead of time, then you'd be thinking about it, or like you'll know going in like who do you want to use. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know until I actually finally made the choice. And like the guy could go invisible and not exist and still walk around, so you can't hear his heartbeat, you can't hear his footsteps, and it's the kind of like the game that you should be fully immersed in, because watching other people play it, they're wearing the headphones and they're really like on the screen, and things happen where like the players actually jump. Like you're playing the game and like you're supposed to fire up this generator and fix the generator, but like it might spark if you don't react soon enough, and like there's also a sound effect to that. And I've seen people playing the game flinch while trying to like play the game. Also, when the killer comes up behind him and stabs him or something.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
Heard that.
And so I did have a lot of fun with that, trying to figure out the map, what your goals are, what their goals are.
Just generally stalking people and making them feel.
And like trying to choose like a patrol route to counter what
I would love to have watched
what
you
they're
play.
trying to do. So it came down to me and 2 other players, because I already killed 2 other ones. And
shocking. He said that without an ounce of remorse. Did you pick up on that, Joe?
Yeah. Just in the look in his eyes, hollow.
and so, like, one of the techniques, I was like, if it gets down to 1, I'm never going to be able to catch just the 1, because, like, it should be tough to find, and having to get her like at the right moment, and then like get to the area she's in. And so, one of the
I love that this is turning into the first snuff podcast.
The other remaining
How
player,
I would murder.
The other remaining player, you can hit them, and you knock them down. Like after 2 hits, they fall down. Then you can pick them up and put them on the meat hook, which then they get sacrificed to the elder god.
You should see the excited glint in his eye right now.
So what I would do, I would hit this guy, so he would fall down, and all he could do is crawl until another player comes to heal him and patch him up.
And how did you feel standing above him as he crawled
I would then turn
away
invisible.
helplessly?
I can't wait until this episode turns into evidence in a deposition.
To be honest, Joe, this would be evidence like in the double numbers, double letters.
I'm now submitting C44.
It's like covers for Walking Dead issues. Like, you've got the A cover and the B cover, and then eventually goes to BB cover because you've gone all the way through X and Z. That's where this episode would be at.
Yes.
But, and so I would use one player as bait, waiting for the other one to come either take them off the hook or come heal them and revive them. But it was a shorter match than I was expecting. And I
wanted to play with him more.
Would you say you're hungry for more?
I kind of am.
Yeah.
The blood.
I thought one
So
would
much
suffice.
Delicious, delicious blood.
I didn't really hang around long enough to see if there are many games where the survivors did achieve their goal and beat the killer. Yeah.
Did you see any?
I've seen ones get close. Like if they had to reactivate like some are 5, some are 7 generators. I've seen them get down to like 2 left, but I didn't see anyone like activate all the generators and achieve whatever their goal was. But it was neat watching.
Seems like a cool game, and I want to play it.
Yeah,
very
bad.
Except
for it to come out because it looks badass.
I love those. I can never remember the actual term, but the Wii U was good for them too. Non-parallel games, non-parallel gameplay. I think that is actually what it's called, where one person has different goals than other people. So those kinds of games are always fascinating to me, but this one feels like a masterpiece of that kind of genre. So very cool.
On the subject of, I would like to add a game to the list.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of discussion, because that's what we're doing. There was a point where you guys were at ACK Inc., and I was exploring the floor. There was a game that I spotted, Australian developer, and the game was called Dead Static Drive. And what it was like it wasn't quite a top down. You weren't like 100% above them. It was kind of top down and then slightly at an angle. So it was kind of cornered off. And the game itself was like I looked it up just to make sure that I had all the right information. The developer describes it as Grand Theft Cthulhu. So it's basically it's like a driving, not a simulator, but basically it looks like the older Grand Theft Auto games where you're driving around.
Yeah, 1 and 2.
And the color scheme of it is it looks very much like kind of static colors. So everything is fully colored, but like their features, like people don't have like eyes, but they've got mouths and stuff. So it's very stripped down, and it looks super cool, the art style itself. And so when I kick on, I grab the controller, and the game starts, and it says, "You're tired, find somewhere to sleep." And as I'm driving, I'm like asking the guy, "So what's this thing about?" And he's like, "Well, you're in a world where Lovecraftian beasts have come into existence where you are. So it's like a zombie apocalypse, but not zombies. It's an apocalypse of otherworldly creatures." And as I'm driving, and it's like dark out, and I have my headlights on, and top down, something about top down, and it pulls you back, makes you so like weirdly on edge. And I can see like through my head beams that there's people standing on the sides, like in the desert, just like with horns, but they're all black, and they have like rib cages showing, like bones. And they're just standing still, and I'm like, I'm going to find some place to go to sleep. And he says the point of the game is like you need to travel to safety. You need to just get out of these small towns. Right now I'm in like a small like little Vegas town, and I pass by a motel, and as I pass by the motel, there's a woman being chased by these creatures. So I pull over and I run them down, and then she just runs off scared. And as you approach like the motel, it like does that thing where like it erases the ceiling so you can see inside the building. And I can see there's another monster in this room, there's a crowbar over there, and there's a gun here, and there's a bed. And he's like, you need to get to a bed because if you're too tired, you might pass out while you're driving, or you get too tired to run away from creatures and you'll get killed. And the game itself was so cool and pretty that like I'm really excited to give it a shot. It was in early alpha. Like it was just the one stage that he was showing off, but there was something about the style and the way it looked so pretty. I would love to show you guys.
What's it called?
Dead Static Drive. I'm going to bring up
Static Drive.
Yeah, Dead
Very
Static
cool.
Drive. Very cool name, and it was freaking sweet. Like this is what the game itself kind of looks like.
All right. Describing for the podcast audience. So it's top down, but it's that like isometric view. So you have sort of a like angle down look. And it's almost cell shaded. Like honestly kind of like the new Zelda game. Like it has that kind of graphical tint to it. It looks terrifying, and so like I can see that tension that you're talking about. Very, very cool.
It is very cool.
And it has that, you mentioned that even if you did not say it was Las Vegas, I would assume it was in like the Nevada desert area just from the style of it. There's something.
And the interesting thing was I died. And so once I died and I was eaten by a monster, it booted up the next, and I was a completely different character. I was a woman, and I was like, oh, so you play until that character dies, and then you're someone else.
Very cool. I love that.
It is very, very cool.
The concept of like the car lights illuminating just what you can see, and that's all you have, that adds to the scary.
It's actually graphically. I was trying to. There was another game that lined up to it. Killer 7. If anyone's ever seen that game, it reminded me of that. It's tough to tell without motion because that game is such a motion aesthetic. But
for sure,
very cool.
That was one of the ones that I split off from you guys and got to take a look at.
Can I throw one down?
Do it.
So this is not like a hidden gem or anything like that. I have a bunch that I'll go through that are hidden gems, but one that I was very excited to be able to tackle because it won't come out until next month is the second downloadable content, so third storyline of the Shovel Knight series, which is called Spectre of Torment. And
I know you like those games.
I love me some Shovel Knight. Oh, so good. And I loved Plague Knight. Like even above Shovel Knight, it had a deeper storyline in a lot of ways. It was just a very different kind of story. And Plague Knight takes place simultaneously as Shovel Knight. This one takes place as a prequel as things are going through. So I was only getting little hints and pieces of the storyline we were going through, but mechanically it's a very different kind of game to control. It's a little bit more slippy and slidey. There's a lot more jumping mechanics that go into it than the other versions, which is very exciting. But one of the really cool things is one of the game developers was the person showing me the game. They had two stations set up to play it, and so this guy was Alec. He got involved about halfway through the Plague of Shadows being developed. So Yacht Club is the name of the developer for it, but I got to learn tons about their company and how they're structured. And Shovel Knight is, to call it universally acclaimed is almost an understatement. Like, best best platformer made in like the last 20 years, and all of these hugely wonderful compliments. It is a game that has reached near perfection. But I was able to talk to him a lot about what it's like to be a Kickstarted game and a Kickstarted company. And I know a little
Shovel
bit.
Knight was Kickstarted?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. It was one of the
It's
first.
crazy to believe because it is a fucking success story.
And it is. I mean, it was well advertised during the course of its kickstarting, but that game was released in 2014. It has kept its promises. It's held mostly onto its deadlines. It's releasing its DLC freely to people who have already purchased.
They had their own amiibo.
Which is, I think they are the only third-party amiibo. Which, no, that's not true, but only non-Nintendo developed amiibo, which is just so flippin' cool. And unsurprisingly, Alec was interesting to talk to. They have less than 15 people on their team that are developing, I think he said, over 140 SKUs with Shovel Knight across the different systems and platformers.
It's on everything.
They talked a lot about exporting it. Like, it's out on the Nintendo Switch right now. It was a launch game for the Switch with Spectre of Torment, and they have a guy that does their porting. Like, everybody helps with like little bits in that. But when I was talking to this guy, he goes, "Yeah, we have this one guy who's a genius," and they have so many great people like that. But he started off as an intern for them, so I won't go into tons of detail about that. I will say, Spectre of Torment will be a boon for anybody who goes to play that. If you already own Shovel Knight, you just get to download it next month. If you're lucky enough to have a Nintendo Switch, you can download it early.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is really nice, but it was so much fun to play, and I have so much respect for Yacht Club Studios and the work that they're putting out, and the love and passion. Being able to, and this is one of those wonderful things about PAX, and we've talked about this in previous years, but to have somebody standing over your shoulder that made the game is just so cool. And it is, I've played Shovel Knight endlessly and Plague of Shadows quite a bit. To get stuck, because like learning the new mechanics and how they work, it really is a tutorial level I was playing through that's meant to teach you. And I had this point where like I was stuck like 3 times, and I gave the guy a look and then snapped my look back, where it was like almost like the, "Hey, can you give me a hand?" I didn't say, I'd never say that, but I had that feeling. And like these guys, they just know. They're like, "No, this is like, this is meant for you.
You got it.
Yeah, you just
We get it.
just push. You got this." And I had that happen with a couple developers, and I got in control of it. But it's like, no, we built this for you to learn from it, and me telling you defeats the purpose of why I make a game.
It's pretty rad.
It was so cool. But yeah, Shovel Knight. I've probably sold Shovel Knight on 2 other episodes at least. But Spectre of Torment is going to be dope. So go ahead and give that a shot.
Can't wait to do so.
JR, you got any games that you like?
I guess I'm going to steal the one that we all kind of liked. I don't know if that's kind of messed up, considering I didn't even play it.
I did just give you a sass look right now.
You did.
Do it.
You did.
Take it.
A little sad. Consider you
Double
did
team
play
it,
it.
guys.
Yeah, I did. I played the hell out of it.
So you're gonna have to help me out on this one.
Cool.
It was a game that I watched happen many times, but I never got to experience because the line was always 5 people deep, and it didn't have a very good place for a line.
Mm-hmm.
It was like in the corner.
Right on the corner of the carpet.
Yeah.
It was on an end cap.
And it's
Facing
exactly.
outward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And mind you, the
So-
first time I walked by this game, it was dead and nobody was playing it. Like,
Yep.
this was Friday at 10:30 a.m. And the developer was just like, "Hey, you want to play this?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
all right."
Then it was the hit of the convention.
And that's just shapes and beats. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's shapes and beats. Did you see the game, Alex?
No.
You didn't see this game?
Oh, damn.
Beautiful
dude.
game.
Joe described it to me.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, describing a visually appealing and acoustically satisfying game is just stupid.
It's one of those games that needs to be
It's one
like,
that I walked by and I was like, I think that could be it.
It's like
it's
asteroids, but if instead of avoiding asteroids, you were avoiding sound waves.
yeah.
If
In a
I may,
techno pop.
if I may quote the guy, just avoid the pink shit. And that was all he gave me. And then I played by myself, but it's a 1 through 4 player game, and I had other people walk up while I was playing it. And his introduction to each person was handing them a controller and going, just don't hit the pink shit.
Yep, that's what it is. You play as little tiny shape, and then beats happen, and pink shit appears on the screen, and you want to not get hit by it. So
Pink
you
to the
avoid
beat.
it. You can dash, and then you can save your teammates who are dead, but you avoid the pink stuff.
That game was fire. It was so fun to watch. It was fun to listen to.
I think ultimately what makes it are the beats, in that like they had good sound, blasting. It's like you get into it. Like you're dodging all this stuff to like the beats of this like up tempo, like techno stuff, and it's just like I want to play that game and blast it with my friends and laugh
It's like,
and yell.
what if DDR attacked you instead of you were trying to time it?
It is an aggressive game.
Plus, what was cool about it is when we were watching it, I was noticing like other people that were not playing it, that were watching it, were tapping to the game itself, like to the sound of whatever song they were playing to. And I thought that was really cool. That was a really cool moment when I looked up and I was tapping my foot because that's what I do to keep time. And somebody else, there was a girl in front of me who was tapping her thighs, like to what the song was doing. And I was like, that's fucking cool.
It was catchy, that music.
It was hyper addicting. Like it's going through my head right now. And even just like I said, I didn't even play it. I saw it. I didn't have the patience or the fortitude to wait long enough to play it because it's one of those things like there wasn't a line, there was a crowd. Whoever got their hands on a controller next got to play. That's how it worked.
Yep.
And I was like, I got to move on. But like ultimately, like I keep saying ultimately these last couple weeks.
Penultimately,
whatever that means.
it's
Second
the
to
thing
last.
just before ultimately.
There it is.
Quintessentially.
Yep, there it is. That's a thing.
Catastrophe.
It's that
I've got
game that I
vocab.
kept going back to try to play. I must have revisited that booth 4 or 5 times just to see, like, oh, maybe it's nope. Maybe now it's nope. 4 people. Nope. There's always a crowd.
How long before we see a DJ actually DJing a show, just playing the game?
I've seen that. And this was years ago. But there was a DS game called Electroplankton.
Okay.
Heard of it.
It's
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
the
yeah.
maps on Brawl.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't think of which one it is though. Hannonbro. That's what it is.
Hannonbro.
But Electroplankton was a collection of, you can't even call them games, but they were like they were experiences. That's what they were. And they were all involving like water thingies and stuff like that. But it was very music oriented. And about 2 years after it came out, somebody DJ'd, and one of their mixing equipments was one of their pieces of mixing equipment was Electroplankton on the DS. It was dope. Yeah. But yeah, that game was so much fun. It's also funny. Like it's not joke telling funny, but actually it has a little bit of charm. Like there's like 1 sentence tutorials that tell you a general idea of what you're supposed to do. But it is funny with shapes and situations and things like that. It is a go-to party game. Yep.
So,
What you got?
serial cleaner. Not serial killer, serial cleaner. Because the bodies are already dead. Knowing you guys are fans of Hotline Miami.
Yep.
My comparison is that it's kind of like that, except Hotline Miami already happened, and you have to clean up the bodies now. Whereas I believe Hotline Miami is based in the 80s.
Yeah.
This game's based more in the 70s. And you have like a full map, and there's bodies, there's blood splatter, there's evidence, and there's cops patrolling the map. And
You got to clean that up.
yeah, well, you can't leave evidence behind. And so your character has to run on this map and avoid the cops' sightline while still moving the bodies, putting them... You could throw them out a window or put them in your car. You can vacuum up all the blood. You have to pick up the gun or the files or stuff like that. And each time you succeed, you just move on to a new level. The demo had about 6 levels to it, but they plan on having 14 on release. And like they did do a lot of history work and like looking into what the 70s sounded like so they could have an accurate soundtrack. Your car is like this classic station wagon.
Just playing the Bee Gees, just literally nonstop.
But they weren't going to release too much storyline because there will be cutscenes and like things that explain more of like what's
Right.
happening.
You're not just a guy who cleans up bodies.
Right. It's like, well, did you kill them or are you cleaning up for someone else? And
Why
stuff
are
like
you
that.
cleaning them up?
Yeah. But that was a lot of fun. And like, if you get caught, you just restart back at the beginning. Each time you get caught and you restart, not everything's in the same place. Like the map is the same, but the bodies might be in different places. The amount of blood might be in different places. The evidence will be in a different place.
The amount of blood. What a sentence.
What a
So-
time to be alive.
You're not going to go through with the same path and the same route every single time because something has changed slightly in each one, or something's more around the corner, or maybe a little tougher to get to, easier to get to. You could luck out on your next death and have a couple things be a little easier. And then later on in future levels, some things you can alter the map. Like there's a shipping dock where you can move a cargo container, and like you can trap one of the cops in this area by moving containers in the way. There's like a body on a barge, and you can move the barge so you can finally dock it. Otherwise, you're just wondering how do I get on there, but like you have to go deeper into the map and like get past all the danger, and then carry the body all the way out.
Graphically, what kind of game is it? Is it graphically like Hotline Miami? Is it more advanced?
Yeah.
Is it cleaner? Is it?
It's about the same.
Yeah.
I would think. Yeah.
That's cool. I love that aesthetic.
Mhm.
You know
Yeah.
that game came out of playing Hotline Miami, and they were like, "Who cleans this?" And that was it.
Probably.
Yeah.
And weird thing that I never thought of about PAX, like I go to a Comic-Con and I'm like, oh, maybe there's a few artists that are from a couple states away, or like Govar travels up from Florida to go to Boston Comic-Con or something. These guys are from all over the world.
Oh, this
Yeah.
is international as hell. Yeah.
So like the serial cleaner guys, they're all from Poland, and like one of their little giveaways is like a phone cleaner. This little thing, it sticks to the back of your phone, and like the front you could take off and clean your screen with.
Huh.
And like, here, look at the directions. Oh, you can't read that because it's in Polish.
Oh, no. I
An
can't even.
attempt was made.
But they were really cool. They chatted with me for a bit.
Mhm.
That was a fun game that I wanted to try out, and like I went back when we walked in on Saturday. You guys were going somewhere, and I disappeared. I went there
Yep.
to get in line to go hop in and play.
On the subject of the distant, like the travelers to come to the convention, and not just but like the vendors and the creators and the developers, there was another game that I went to this when you guys were at ACK Inc. That was there's actually one of the ones that was advertised on the big screen outside. The Colin Legacy, and it was what attracted me to it was my name was in the title for one. That was the main reason.
Legacy. You're welcome.
But it was supposed to be a scary game, and so the booth itself wasn't a booth; it was a house, and it was the house from the game, and it was like an old, crappy, looked like New Orleans, like bayou-looking swamp house. And so the line was around that, and when I got lucky, it was like a 5-minute wait. And as I walked around, the dude, some guy in a suit, was like, "Hey, thanks for coming to check it out," and he was again the COO of a company of the organization that had developed the game. And he's like, head inside. It's an actual house. You're going to be playing like in the living room, and then there's going to be a kitchen. So if you want water, they had like an actual fridge. So giving waters out to everybody. And I was like, sweet. And he was talking about how that afterwards, if I played whatever I enjoyed, if I can tweet about it or something, not solely for advertisements, but because half of the development team couldn't come because they couldn't get approved for their green card.
Aw,
To travel,
what?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so they were like, they're watching us on Twitter and just wanted to know that people are playing. So I was like, oh, that's crazy, and I enjoyed it. It was creepy and cool. It was like kind of like a Silent Hill, but not like monster scary. It was more like unsettling and creepy.
So like the first Silent Hill.
There you go. That's good. That's a nice one. I like that. It was really cool, and that was another one that popped. So I would recommend checking that out. The Kalina Legacy.
Nice. Let's see. I've got a bunch. So this
Hit
was
it.
one where I can't even talk about this as a story type of thing yet because it's not there, but it is so much more developed than you think it would be. It was called Starry Night Haley, and it looks sort of like, if I had to generation it, I'd probably go Genesis, which is a slightly different aesthetic than Super Nintendo, trust me, but it's there.
I feel you.
Yeah,
I
right?
can get on board with that.
Yeah. And it's there's something about the speed of movement and the size of the characters and things like that. And it was certainly in we had the person who was walking JR and I through it because we were playing it at the same time was talking about he said this game is very different, and I go, oh, I'm intrigued. Why might this be different? And the first thing is that it was pretty much entirely developed by one person, and her name is Haley. So I think when you develop a game, you're totally allowed to throw your name into it. But I mean, we're talking about sprites and design work and all of that sort of thing. And one of the things that he says, and he goes, well, it's just different in the way that it controls. It has like a slide kick. And I'm like, oh, all right. And so I press down and attack, and anyone who's ever played Mega Man 3 Beyond knows that does a slide thing. And I go, oh, so that's what you mean. And he goes, no, like when you jump in the air, and it's a down kick. And it sounds like I'm talking about the most pedantic thing in the world, but the game is developed
Those
around
simple mechanics.
Yeah, those simple mechanics. It's developed around giving you a handful of tools and letting you explore the world through it. So as he was walking us through this game, he's telling us how she is a Smash player competitively, and she is also a speedrunner. She's somebody that likes those things. And so this game has this speedrun mechanic built right into it, where if you know the mechanics and the level, and there's not a million ways, there's like tons of ways that you can go and face any of these given challenges. And so from an aesthetic perspective, because it was a cool looking game, and from a mechanical perspective, because like it sounded silly again when he said this down kick thing, which sounded insignificant, and it was so much fun, like bouncing off of bad guys to get to secret areas and to figure this thing out. And honestly, it's a game where if you did not go through the tutorial, that game is a million times harder when you're trying to do it. Like there was a portion where I started talking to the guy while JR was playing it, and then when I flipped back to the screen, I'm like, I don't even know how you overcome that, because you had to go through those steps to learn from doing it. It is one of another example of the developer could have told you what to do, but they're not going to let you do it. He wasn't one of the developers, but he's seen enough people play through it. And I'm so excited to keep an eye on it. And one of the things that I said was, I was asking him, I go, so is there a storyline around here? And he's like, well, there is something, but we can't talk about it right now because it really gets unveiled. And with a game with those kind of mechanics, all I want to know is what's going on inside of that story. So I'm very excited to see where that game goes.
It was like the first one we saw, too.
It's super early on, yeah. And they were giving out awesome pins.
Yeah.
It's one of those games that could be very easy to miss.
Yep.
And it would be like, damn it, how did I miss that? You know,
it's a game that you need to put your hands on and move through, because even just watching somebody play it, you're like, oh, I've seen a game like this. And it's like, no, I really haven't played a game that's quite like that. So Starry Night Haley is a strong recommend for me.
You know what? Oh, go ahead. Go. Do it.
In the Kickstarter lounge, I wanted to try a spaceflight game with like a spaceship maker thing, which I've always been kind of disappointed in past versions.
I hated that part of Kingdom Hearts.
What?
Nobody cared, man. You just fly through the planets. Kingdom Hearts, in the original, you had to build your like gummy ship or whatever it was called. I never did it. Didn't care. Just give me to the next Disney themed planet. Thank you. Continue.
There's been games where like you can design your own spaceship, but then what happens afterwards is usually boring and not fun to do anymore. It's like, how many times can you just build your spaceship? It's just not. Or like they say it's super, in depth and how many things you can change and you get into it, and it's like, oh, now there's microtransactions, surprise, and
have fun.
You actually can't build anything. So I found Starfighter and gave that a shot. That's currently the Kickstarter is running right now. They didn't have the customizable ship running for that. They wanted to put you more in the gameplay and the combat version of it. Otherwise, like, how interesting is it watching someone construct a ship?
Yeah,
at an expo.
I would do that differently, and I am not entertained.
But the gameplay is neat because, like, it's zero gravity, the whole thing. So, like, your up down, your controls will move you in that direction, and then you can spin in a circle and barrel roll and all those things. It's
Essential spaceship maneuvers.
But like you're doing that in the hangar before you get into your ship. And
So
then
you can like test fly it.
yeah.
Okay.
And then you have your thruster, and like, you know, the mechanics of how you drive are completely different because you're in space. And then I was trying to get more interest about the combat, because if you're in space, if you get shot the wrong way, your ship's going to explode.
Yeah.
And so like
Oh no.
I was in a match.
It's science.
They had like the two systems set up, and so it's basically you versus the other player who's trying out the game for the first time as well. And the guy's like, well, you can try to get closer, you can try and land in the hangar, or you could just go ahead and try and shoot. And like as he's saying, try and shoot, like I shot my railgun and just exploded him. And he's like, or you could just be a Deadeye and win right like that. And I was like, well, I saw the last guy do it. I figured it'd be pretty easy.
It's high noon, baby.
But like to get you into it, the guy's like describing everything that just happened, because like your railgun isn't really firing a bullet; it's firing like a slug.
Right.
And, like he's saying like what it's going through and hit the reactor, and that's why it exploded. And I was like, but if you're in space, wouldn't any weapon cause the entire ship to destruct? He's like, no, they have it all figured out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like whatever you connect with, whatever you hit, will affect the ship. So like, you might be flying and you could hit by something that's not a direct shot, and like your on-screen display shuts down, and so like you might think that your computer is lagging, but your heads-up display is just deactivated because of the damage that you took.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and so you could
I want to play that.
your thruster or your engine could run hot, and so a heat-seeking missile could target that, or an attack that causes more heat could make your engine overheat. So you could get shielding for that, or something to cool that down, or run, a different kind of system and what kind of guns you would have. So that looked really interesting to me as far as like flight simulator games go, and constructing vehicles go. That like gave me a new hope compared to like ones that I've been disappointed with in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Starfighter.
Not to name any, call anyone out or anything like that.
This was the game. This was Starfighter.
Okay.
Starfighter was the good
this
one.
I thought you were saying Starfighter was the bad one.
No, this is what I played. This is what was there.
Starfuck 64.
Currently on Kickstarter.
Do you know how long it has? Is it like a month away from finishing, or is it pretty close to the end?
It's 29 days.
So okay,
28 or so.
Month.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So PAX must have been great for them.
Like a kickoff,
Yeah, pretty much.
That's awesome.
Yep.
There was we finished?
I was looking to see who else has next.
Right. There was one game that we played very quickly. Very, very quickly. And I was like, I wanted more of that, but we were quickly rushed out of our beanbags.
Oh.
I don't know if anyone else remembers
Yes.
playing
I do remember.
at Sundown,
Mm-hmm.
which it's like a game. It was very reminiscent of a game that came with the Wii U, where it was 4 players, and like everything takes place in the dark. So like you can't see your guy unless you were to like run or press a button that checks like your location.
Or walk by a window.
Exactly.
Or,
You're masked in darkness. So you're in shadow. You can just see the outline of the room, like it's top down, and like you can pick different guns to use. And essentially, your objective is to kill the other players. But it's tough because you can't see them unless they happen to make a mistake or walk within like a lit area. And you also can't see yourself unless you do the same thing. So like it was very strategic in the fact that like you're playing against both of those like those odds, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
And it's also like different people are using different guns. Like ultimately we ended up getting wrecked by like a 10-year-old kid
Yeah.
who just grabbed the machine gun and just spammed the fire button and just inevitably hosed down everyone.
Right.
Whereas I was using the shotty, was a little bit more strategic in my approach. I had the lead for like a split second, but it was one of those games that I wanted more of. I was like, wait, it was the one round. Can we go one more time?
There is something to be said for, because there are plenty of demos that are 20 minutes long, and it's like, oh, so they're going to get through 3 times 10, 30 people each day of PAX, and then it's over.
Yeah.
So like these folks, we were next in line when we showed up, and I think a part of it is because the demo itself we literally were there for less than 5 minutes. It might have been 3 minutes.
Yeah.
We sat down, we played a match, it was over.
Yeah. It was It was a little painfully short, but ultimately, like, in that short amount of time, my interest was piqued.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wanted more of it. You know, so, like, it's one of those things, like, I will grab that card, and I will definitely invest. Apparently, according to the card, it's coming soon to PC, so looks like I'll never play it, which is kind of a bummer, because I have my crappy laptop.
Although it didn't seem like it was hugely graphically intensive either.
Yeah.
Like, I could see it being a steamable type of game.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just one of those, you know, quick games that I really enjoyed. I wanted more of. Excuse me. It was an interesting concept. You know, like, a lot of times you just see the multiplayer, like, just shoot each other as much as you can. But this one had, like, the interesting twist of, like, the darkness is both working for you and against you. It was intriguing, to say the least. Who else?
I guess we
Got a
could kind
game?
of tag team together if you're interested.
Yeah, I think we might be on the same one. That's how I was doing that.
I've got two that we could talk about. So
Me
I don't know
too.
what we can talk-
Yeah. Board game and video game.
I got three.
Okay.
3 games.
All right, start it up.
Let's do another one. We'll do Reservoir Dogs, Bloody Days.
Oh, boy. Yep.
Another kind of top-down isometric type game, which was it was announced that day.
It
that
was
weekend?
announced Friday morning.
Mm-hmm.
So they had the development companies from Barcelona, and they had a couple of their team members on site to show off this game. So they apparently had shown it on GDC, or at GDC, which was the weekend before PAX. And in doing so, like, there were a lot of press that were able to see it and check it out and all that stuff. They had, obviously well in advance, gotten an exhibitor's booth at PAX, but the game was still underneath, what's the term? Embargo, yeah. So they didn't get approval to lift embargo until 1 a.m. the Friday of PAX, which means if it didn't get lifted, they would have been in trouble. Like, they would have had to, and they didn't have the biggest booth there. Like, they had a kind of small setup, but it would have just been like, we spent all this money to have this booth, and we're not allowed to show our game right now. Because, as you might imagine, at Reservoir Dog Games, that means that it's licensed, which means that they have stakeholders that are, like, embargoes are a pretty serious deal in licensed games. You actually got hands-on with it, Colin.
Yes. The game itself was cool. It's like a top-down kind of isometric type of thing where you control 3 characters. The ones that I controlled, Mr. Blonde, Mr. Brown, Mr. Pink. And the game itself has this really cool way that it's played. Is you play as your first character. You start off as Mr. Brown, and you move for however many seconds, and then when you're finished moving the first character, the game itself rewinds. So whatever movements you made with the first character you picked, go back to the beginning. And then you're moving on to the second character. Then you decide what the second character does. But as you decide what the second character does, whatever you had done with the first player does the same things that you had chosen before. So you basically move 3 people at once, just at different intervals. You take turns moving them. So if you move a character up and you see that he draws 2 policemen at you, and one fires from a doorway and one fires from around the corner, you can then rewind your time, move to the next player, and then as you follow Mr. Brown up to where you could put him, you can fire off at the cop that's behind the corner, and while Mr. Brown aims at the guy in the doorway. And it was a really cool way to play. So,
like, as the guy was explaining the concept, and he was really, like, he showed us, there were a bunch of us gathered around watching it, and then he looks at me and he goes, "Do you want to play?" And I'm like, "No!" Like, super enthusiastic, and I can't wait. And Colin was brave enough to grab the controller, and he figured it out relatively quick. For anyone who's ever seen the movie Rashomon or Rashomon-style stories, where you have one person who tells a story, and then another person goes and tells the same story, but you can see different details, it's like that in video game form, which I've had this conversation with somebody else about Pulp Fiction, weirdly enough, where how do you make Pulp Fiction a video game? Because it's all out of order, and there are things that happen beforehand that have consequences later, and that sort of thing. And as I was talking to the CEO of the company, a gentleman named Liam, and so he was super excited about the game and gave us a lot of great details about
Should
it.
be, because it was cool.
And I looked at him and I go, "So it's like a Rashomon story?" And he goes, "You get it." But it is that where when Mr. Brown goes and he shoots one person, but then somebody else gets him, and you get to go back 10 seconds, you as Mr. Pink can run in and stop that second person from shooting Mr. Brown in the first place. It sounds very complex. It was a little complex. Like, it took some doing.
Until I got my hands on the keyboard, I was like, what the hell are you talking about?
It's got a flair of oh my gosh, Hotline Miami to it in the top-down style, and it is a very violent game, and it's such shockingly Quentin Tarantino. So it has that. It has a little bit of Monaco. If anyone's ever played that game
Love
before,
Monaco.
Me too. Where the
Why
characters
have we never played Monaco?
we should play Monaco.
Yeah, we should.
Where you have 4 different characters with Monaco, but they each have different abilities. So you have a lockpicker and stuff, and the game has those mechanics as well. But it is so truly its own thing. Like, I've never seen a game like it, and it's rare that I get to say, like, this is a completely unique mechanic.
And they were giving out ear lollipops.
Yeah, they were.
at their booth.
Which was
Oh,
dark.
that's where those came from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sweet stuff.
And they knew this offhand that most licensed games are garbage. With which it's a fact. Like, they shoot them out. There's no love. To go back to last week's
Right.
episode with Mikey Newman, where like love is what makes something not. You can find something good
Some
inside
value.
of it.
For years, the best movie licensed game was Chronicles of Riddick.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
For
Two Towers.
like year.
Return of the King. Those were good too.
Those came after. Those probably what broke like the
Mm.
streak. But like
Yeah.
the only one that ever came close, and it mattered.
I can't name any others. That's all I got.
I though they are a precious thing
Mhm,
when they are a good one. The one that I always go to is the Astro Boy game on the Game Boy Advance, like the brilliant game. But this game is, especially, I mean, we're talking 20 years. It's over 20 years.
Yeah.
Because it would have been 94 was Pulp Fiction, so it's got to be around there, right?
Yeah. Before then, yeah.
So yeah, we're talking well over 20, moving into the 25-year territory. But they are doing good stuff with that license.
And the guy that I was speaking to was the guy who created the game engine and everything like that. And he is a fan. And he definitely doesn't know how much I love that movie, because I love Reservoir Dogs. Best Tarantino. Say what you will, it's the best one. It's so good. And he was explaining to me, and I don't think he realized, he thought I might have just been like, nodding along, but I totally knew what he was talking about, because he was like, you remember that scene where Mr. Blonde gets out of jail and he's sitting there with nice guy Eddie, and they're talking about how they're going to get him to work at the docks, and in my head I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about. And they wrestle and everything, and they call each other, they get banged by a bunch of black guys, homophobic jokes. It's great. He was like, this is the docks that they're talking about. This level that you're going to play is the docks that he works on. And I was like, I know this. No one would bring this up unless they really knew that movie, because that scene is just like a nothing scene. But like, and that's what really sold me on. I was like, this dude likes this movie.
I would say, I don't even think there's a contest against this. These were the most excited developers I got to talk to. These guys loved making games, and they loved this game that they made.
Yeah. It showed.
Yep. Excellent choice.
What else?
Can we do another Colin Joe?
Yeah, can we do, why don't we mix it up with a board game, and then we'll hit
Dragoon?
the last game.
You want to hit it up with that Dragoon?
Dragoon.
Yeah.
This board game it's probably my favorite board game, and I really want to buy it.
Yep.
You go, because it's elegant and it's beautiful, and you have better words than I do.
So Dragoon, there's obviously this gigantic board game section, but much like the Indie Mega Booth, which groups a whole bunch of indie games together so that they can take up a big space without, for whatever reasons that they do it. This was a gathering of a bunch of games as well, and Dragoon had its own aisle of playtesting. Like, they had 4 tables set up just to playtest Dragoon. You cannot talk about this game without first noticing the aesthetic of it. So it is a game that takes place on a cloth map. The pieces that you play as are these heavy metal pieces. The dice are tiny little metal dice. The things that you do, like in Monopoly, where you have houses that you put on your properties, you have little barracks for those things. They're tiny little metal barracks. Like, this game is gorgeous, utterly, utterly beautiful. And you play. It's played between 2 and 4 players, and you are a dragon. That is your character, and the other characters are dragons as well. And you have happily lived in your own little territory, your own little cave, until humans start populating it. And so the point of this game is it starts off with human populations get laid down on the map, and it's always like 5. And then you have
it's like a tiled board, kind of like Battleship.
Yeah. I want to say it's 6x6.
Yeah.
Like, it's 6x6 because you have to use the dice. To lay them out. And so the tiles get laid out, and then as a dragon, you have a choice to make, where you can go and what you land on a human settlement, and it's like, okay, I'm going to protect the settlement and then receive money from them on a regular basis, or I'm going to destroy it and take all of their money. And so you get long-term gains by having them pay off,
worship you,
worship you and give you tithes on a regular basis, or you can do like the make money quick sort of mechanic of it. There's a card mechanic that gives you additional powers while you're playing it, in a similar fashion to Overwatch, where you play your characters and they almost feel overpowered, but since every character feels overpowered, it feels fair.
That like no one is overpowered. Yeah.
You had super overpowered cards where sometimes it would be like, oh, I can do this, and now this thing happens, and it's like, oh, how are you going to come back from that?
But then like somebody else has a turn, and what you did might not matter. You know? It's awesome.
Absolutely, and like you can fight the other dragons. You can go and duel.
And just the construction of this game, it's beautiful. The board itself wasn't a board; it was like a scroll, like on fabric. That it was like, oh, and you can wash this. Like you picked it up, and like the pieces themselves were like heavy metalled pieces, like the die that we found for D&D. And so each of the dragon, like I was gold, and you were copper.
Yep.
And there was like an onyx and a silver, and they were so pretty. Like I can't get over how nice. I'm just gonna buy it.
Look up pictures of it. It is utterly, fantastically beautiful game. Though if I have a criticism of it, and it's the only negative thing I can say, is that it's expensive. And even saying that it's expensive, I have to follow it with the phrase, it is worth it. So if you're looking it up, it's Dragoon with 2 O's, Dragoon. I can't remember if it's Kickstarter or Indiegogo, but they have another campaign that they're doing because they have expansion packs that are going with it. Because in addition to your dragons, a thief can show up, and the thief steals money from dragons and stuff like that. You have a barbarian
thief.
that's just
It's awesome. It is such a cool game.
It was so good, and the dragon or the thief can beat you. Like
you get it up there, Alex?
Are you looking it up?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So the term dragoon has been around for a long time, and I feel like this might be the same company that has done something with it before, unless they're just using.
I think they're just using it as a. It seems like this is one of their first forays into the board game world, so they've done great stuff with it. I would definitely recommend pulling it up and taking a look at it, though.
I'm looking for a game that I have on my PlayStation 3 that I'll show you guys later.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm now intrigued. I didn't get to talk to any of the developers. The guy that ran our game, because Colin and I did it as a play testing, and we played against 2 other guys that they were friends, but allegiances meant nothing inside of this. So it was, because just by luck of the draw, where settlements land, you have different levels of control. It is a game that would take you 3 minutes to understand, and you could replay over and over again with varying results and such. So, hard recommend for Dragoon.
I want to pick it up.
Do you want to do our triumvirate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Has been heroes.
Is that what you're doing? Were you doing before? That's awesome.
Has Been Heroes, a Nintendo Switch title. I don't know if it's on any other devices.
It's on every other. The first time I walked into their booth, they go, "So what's your console of choice?" And I'm like, and he's like, "Nintendo?" And I'm like, "I like Nintendo." So he handed me a Switch controller. No, he handed you the Switch controller. I said PlayStation 4 because I didn't know what the options were, and so they brought me over to PS4 controller.
And that game is super cool. I've never played a game like it. It's played like you're escorting. Looks like 2 people,
2 princesses,
who are standing behind your party of 3: a warrior, a wizard, and a rogue.
And a warrior, a monk, and a rogue.
A monk and a rogue. And the game itself is played as like a side scroller in a way, in that there's 3 lanes. So each of your heroes is in one lane. You can't have more than 1 hero in a lane. And across from you are enemies that are moving towards you slowly.
It's actually, I'd almost relate it to tower defense, except your towers are running towards the enemies while they're running at you.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
And so the way the game is played is each character that you have has an endurance level that lets them attack a certain amount of times by jumping forward and attacking whatever is in front of them. And so if you have a character he can swing twice, but in front of you is a character that can defend 3 times. If you attack them with your first player, you're not going to be able to break through this person's defense, and you won't be able to do any damage. So you need to consistently move and trade places with your other heroes, and you do that by pressing pause and organizing the switch, how you want to organize and jump forward. And you can only switch lanes if you move somebody ahead to attack. So it was hard to get going, but once you start to figure out, like, that was weird what I explained to you, and it's just as weird when you first start.
The guy that explained it to me, because I got a handle on it before Colin got to jump in, he told me all the things that you just said, and then he walked away, and he just let me die 3 times. Like, that's basically what it boiled down to.
And then, have to.
And then on the 4th time, I'm like, oh, I understand this. And he looks at me and he goes, how good does that feel right now? And it did. It felt real good.
Yeah, once you start moving fluidly, because to learn it, you have to be really clunky. And the whole time you're like, I just want to fly through it. And once you start, like, taking people down, it's really rewarding in the fact that you have to think to attack. It's very cool. I'm really looking forward to diving into that one a bit more.
I believe they called it a roguelike, which is very accurate. And for people who aren't familiar with the term roguelike, it typically has 2 features. The first is that it changes every single time you play it. So if you've ever played a game like Binding of Isaac or something like that, every playthrough is completely different because the level setup will be different, the enemies that you fight will be different, the weapons that you have access to will be different. There's actually a gachapon, like one of those bubble dropping machines, and the demo always started with one of these, and you'd get a different spell every single time. That was one of the components. Once you wore down the stamina, you can attack health with.
It's very arcade feeling.
It's very arcade, and I love that.
Yeah.
So that's the number 1 feature of roguelikes, is that they change every time. The number 2 feature of roguelike is that they're freaking hard. And this game will beat you up. You will lose, and that's totally fine. Because I mentioned that I died 3 times, and I immediately jumped back in. I was just like, yep, ready to play again.
Because I didn't feel like I got my ass kicked. Like, it was like, oh, I don't get it yet.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, it is a run before you crawl sort of game. You got way further than I did. You got to the final boss of it.
Barely.
Yeah, it was. I coached.
Yeah.
And then this and that, and it really is for anyone who tries it. Die 5 times. Like, go through and let it beat you up a little bit, because it is a super rewarding game once you give it the time to give because it sounds overly complicated. Like, even when the guy was explaining it to me, I'm like, you could have streamlined this game. And then I played it and I'm like, you really couldn't. I get why you did what you did.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Nice job. They had a huge booth too.
Yeah.
Like, they probably had 8 kiosks set up, maybe even 10
for multiple consoles.
Multiple consoles, and then they had, like, their own little gachapon system giving away pins and stuff.
They had nice real estate because it wasn't, like, crowded, crunched in. It was cool.
Comfortable. They had a lot of hands on deck. That was a fun one, though. And it's been getting a little bit of press, which I hadn't heard of the company before. They were like Frozen Byte, I think is what they were called. But apparently they have 1 or 2 games out right now. I see you're looking at the sheet
Frozen
right now, Jared.
Byte, yeah.
Frozen Byte. So they already have 1 or 2 games out, and I know that they are very different than this one. This is the one that I'm really excited to put my hands on.
Launches March 28th. Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and Steam. I mean, you got no excuse.
Yeah. But it will be probably a day 1 purchase for me for PS4. I think that they priced it at $20, which, considering how many levels there are, and I think, like, as I went through, I got to play it 4 times, or I only really played it 1 time, and I died 3 times. But that machine gave me a different spell every time, and I was like, wow, I got 4 different spells. And he goes, yeah, there's 600 of them, so that's probably going to happen. Dope.
It is very cool. Very addicting.
I did a scavenger hunt.
Tell us about the scavenger hunt, Alex. This consumed.
We had intermittent updates from you throughout, and it was just like, wow, Alex is crushing this thing.
I wanted to complete it, and I did. Some were harder than others. Basically, it's Evolve was supporting a bunch of other games. So they could, I think they do handle like distribution. But you had to go either like watch a demo or actually play the game or talk to the people working the booth or whatever. But I played every single one, so I'm just going to take some time and try and like give brief synopsis of most of them. Mother Gunship was interesting. It's a first-person shooter, and you go through the level, it's basically like you're on a ship and it's attacking you because like you have to fight turrets that come out of the walls or out of the floor, or they release like drones that attack you. But this game's thing is customizable guns. Like you walk in with this one blaster, and then when you finish a level, there's a section where you can go to, you know, basically a store and then upgrade your gun. You could add components to it, add barrels. You can, so it won't just fire bullets or slugs. You could have it fire chain lightning or lasers or whatever. And then when you go through another level, you can switch your dominant hand. So imagine as we're playing Overwatch, and Soldier 76 always has his gun held in the right hand.
On the right, yeah.
You could switch that to a left-handed gun.
What would that do?
Yeah, why was
Okay,
my...
okay. So let's say we're playing Overwatch. You're hiding behind a corner, and your bullet is going to hit the wall before it shoots Roadhog, who's a ways away. So you have to step further out. But if you're on a corner on the opposite side of the room or the opposite side of the map, you can hit him while still being concealed because that's what side your gun is on.
Okay.
So if you could switch that, you would have a better shot while still being concealed.
I like that. That's cool.
Right?
Very curious.
Yeah.
You can kind of do that for some third-person action adventure games. Like if you like Uncharted, you can change which shoulder you're hanging over, right?
Yeah. Or if he has like that duck and hide mechanic, he shoots like over his back or something. Dead Cells was fun. I was calling that the Ghost Rider game because when you power up a lot, his head bursts on fire.
Pretty badass.
But that it starts kind of funny because roommate Ryan played it too, and he made the same joke because it starts off and like this amorphous blob kind of crawls into this suit of armor kind of thing, and it looks like it's just crawling in through its butt. It's not supposed to be that way, but it was really humorous to us both. We both thought this. But the game is neat because when you die, you start back at the same place. But as you go through the game and play the game, you can upgrade your skills and traits of that the character can do. You can obtain weapons as well. But when you die, you don't keep the weapons, but you keep your traits and skills. So like you'll have to achieve a certain rank to be able to double jump or triple jump or do something else. And this way, when you go start back at the beginning, now you can access different points that you couldn't get to before because you have new traits. So, like, there's a door that you couldn't open and you had to skip it, so you go through the level. It's almost like a Mega Man platformer as you run through all these different dungeon levels. But the death aspect of it that resets you helps you explore more of it that you couldn't get to before. So that was interesting and fun. That's the kind of thing I would really want to like invest a lot of time in. Like I could definitely like pour hours into that, trying to see what I could unlock and open. And if I die, I'm not going to get discouraged. Nidhogg 2 was probably the most difficult one because that had the longest wait because it had the biggest crowd watching it.
And that's a fairly well-known... I know... I don't even know how to say Nidhogg, but that first game was relatively popular.
Right, yeah. Because everyone was watching it, and like it wasn't just playing it, it was the audience, you know, the spectator participation. It is a pain in the ass of a game. Because it's a 2-player game, and you basically need to clear a level by running across the screen. So it's either a right side scroller or left side scroller. And your character is like this ugly meatball looking person. And
go on.
You spawn with a weapon of some kind, be it a sword or a bow and arrow or a knife, and you have to defeat the other player. And once you kill them by like grossly cutting them in half or stomping on their head or something, you run along the path, and then they respawn in front of you, and you have to fight them again. And when you kill them, you keep going, and they respawn in front of you. And you have to keep beating them until you get to the very end, where some other giant flying dragon snake that looks like it's made of meatballs eats you. That's how you win the game. The giant meatball flying snake monster eats you.
You want to get eaten?
Yeah. Because that's the Nidhogg.
It's a metaphor.
I guess. But, so when player 2 spawns in front of you because you just beat them, they can kill you. And then they have to run towards their direction.
So it can go for a long time.
Yo, I was watching a match for easily a half hour. They just kept... No one got close enough to finish. It took so long. What? And so, like, I just want my stamp, you guys. And, like, someone would get close, and, like, everyone would yell and start cheering.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, like, you'd run past your opponent, and, like, they would try and run to catch up to you, but they'd be better off just running off screen so they could respawn in front of you again.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, you'd run past them and think, like, well, do I want to turn around and kill them? No, just run. So everyone's just yelling at you from behind you, like, run! Just go! My match didn't take that long. Mine took about
Did you
5.
win?
No. Mine took about 5 minutes. Easy to control, but it could just take forever. It's easily just.
Sounds fun.
It was fun for the time I took. Sombrero was a neat game. It was kind of like Smash Brothers, except it's more of a Western, and you're shooting at each other instead of just like it being like a brawl or a melee. You're shooting each other with guns. There's a map. There's like a capture the flag thing or just a death match, and you respawn once you get shot to try and shoot back. There's different weapons that appear on the map that you can try and pick up. So you have a pistol, you could try and get the shotgun, or like throwing knives, and they'll bounce across the screen instead. That was a fun game. Moonlighter was really neat. There was like one studio that had like 3 different games you could play. I chose the Moonlighter, which is basically like a Legend of Zelda game, like one of the more original ones, where you walk onto the map, you fight some bad guys, then you can move on to the next section of the dungeon. Except that's only half the game. And it's kind of cute, because your main character like walks onto the map, and he's carrying this big, huge backpack. It's the size he is. And he shrugs it up, and like he like sighs from the weight, and he's exhausted, and he adjusts his headband, and he like walks into this dungeon to go fight these monsters, because the goal of that is you go fight the monsters to obtain stuff, metal pieces for crafting, and wood and jewels and whatever to bring back to your shop, because the actual purpose of the game is having the best shop. You're a shopkeeper, and you have to sell products. That means walking around the town looking at other people's shop and seeing what they're selling things for. The NPCs come in, and they look at your items, and you'll get to tell if they think that's a good price or a bad price, and you can adjust that. So it's not just about combat, it's about
Archery?
merchandising, I guess. Yeah.
Merchandise.
The tutorial like shows you how to fight and block and like jump across the cavern. And then like it just throws you into this one dungeon map, and there's like 20 bad guys. And you die immediately, because you're supposed to, as part of the storyline.
All right.
And then the old man comes over and takes you and brings you back to your house, where he tells you how to be a shopkeeper. So ultimately the goal is to become the best shopkeeper, not to become the best dungeoneer.
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting.
It's a game I've heard of. Like, as you're describing the plot, I'm like, oh yeah, I knew that one.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. And like it's multifaceted. It's not just fighting,
Right.
but it's not just commerce. It's a bit of both. And as you go on, like your inventory fills up differently, because some items will take up spots next to it, which are basically blank squares in the inventory. But you have to leave that open, or you can't carry the thing. It's weird.
Yeah.
But so that now it's also like a puzzle game. Aftercharge was a big setup. It was a 3 versus 3. You're invisible robots that have to punch these energy reactors.
Okay.
But as you
listening.
punch them, you become visible, and you gain power. At the same time, there's also players in suits who are trying to depower you and shut you down. And they power up from these energizers.
This is the best plot that has been described in a game yet. I'm not even sarcastic. Like, I'm immediately intrigued.
And so it's 3 versus 3, and you play 2 rounds, because you play one as the robots and you play one as the suits that stop the robots. And one of the fun things is like you can punch one of the suit guys as the robot, and he goes flying across the map. He doesn't really take damage, because you're not trying to damage them. You're trying to shut down all the generators. And then you can like beam energy to your other robots if they're shut down, and you're invisible until you get too close to one of these guards, and they can like have a beam that senses you. And that's when they start shooting at you. They could call it an airstrike. So like you might think you've done really good as the Guardians, and then have to play as one of the robots and see how the difficulty level changes on that. So it gives you like the 2 matches to switch back and forth and try that. And that was a really neat setup. Perception was one of those storyline games. I described it, it's like you're playing a novel, essentially, where you're just going through and discovering things on this not open world, I don't want to say. This one was, you play as a deaf girl, but she has this echolocation kind of power. And she walks with a cane, so like you can tap the cane on the ground, and that will radiate out, and you can see what's in front of you. If there's stairs, a chair, tables, crates, and whatever. And her goal is to travel to this house, which is maybe haunted, but then she can't really see people. She can just hear the noises they make. And this is one of those games where it's like, I never thought to play with headphones on.
Sounds like it would be terrifying in VR.
Yeah. Because maybe the
I want
house
that now.
is haunted. Because they're in the promo, in the demos, like, you're seeing these shapes that shouldn't be there because they're terrifying. It's like playing a game of John Dies at the End. The movie John Dies at the End.
Mm-hmm.
And the creepy stuff that's in that is in this game. But is it supposed to be there, or are you just hearing things?
I like when he describes the ghost. God, I love John Dies at the End. Have you seen that?
I
No?
want to read it.
Read it and read the sequel. The sequel is one of my favorite books, actually.
Spiders?
Yeah, this book is full of cider. Seriously, don't open it. It's really funny. Good read.
The Church in the Darkness was another one of those, you're playing a novel, essentially, where you go through this, I forget what the terminology is. Religious group goes and forms this little...
Commune?
Sect?
Commune, yeah. And you have to go, like, rescue your nephew.
Oh,
Who, like,
cool.
You're not sure if he's been brainwashed and is trapped there or not. And you're playing as his uncle or aunt to go try and get him out, but you have to sneak in because they don't like strangers. So it's a lot of sneaking and like trying to find disguises and trying to find your nephew. And I was like, so how's the replay value on this game? And he's like, well, there's different options you could, decide to end with. Do you take Alex forcefully? The character's name is Alex. Do you take a fork forcefully out of this compound, or do you leave him there? Do you assault like these cult leaders, or do you just kill them, or do you try and reason with them, or do you try and call authorities? So there's a lot of different things that you could do to try and like alter the game. Yeah, it was neat.
Huh.
And even if you get caught, like there's a way to try and sneak back in again.
And you just join?
You can't just join because they'll recognize you as an outsider.
Oh.
So like you still have to like keep your distance, and that's why like you
So
would have-
unrealistic.
I want to join.
that's why you'd sneak around and like try and find different outfits to wear, to try and blend in. As
Like Han Solo on the
as
Death
a
Star.
spy. Yeah, exactly. Because you're a spy.
Got it. That's the second week in a row we name drop Han Solo.
Don't come up here. Everything's fine.
How are you?
How are you?
How are you?
Now, everything's fine.
And last one was Conan Exiles. And worldwide, those guys are from Norway. I needed Joe's help for a bit because I went to them first day because I was like, yo, Conan? I'm all about this. And then I got there and I was playing a bit, and I didn't really get what they were doing. Because I was like, so what's the point of the game? And he's like, well, it's like Minecraft, where you could start your own server, join someone else's server, and then play through their game. And I'm like, so what's my mission objective? Or who's the bad guy that I fight? And they're saying, well, it's open world, so you just go fight what's out there. I'm like, I hate this idea. I need clearly defined everything. And so I was telling Joe this. And Joe was like, that sounds interesting. And I was like, does it? Maybe I'll give him
Are
another?
you sure?
Well,
Let's try this again.
Yeah, well, and I think I'm struggling to remember our exact conversation, but as you were describing it, I'm not necessarily feeling good or bad, but what I am feeling is curious. Like there's a logic to what they're trying to do and what they're presenting. And I had more questions.
Yeah.
I guess like you had told me things, and I asked you things, and you were like, I'm not sure. Like that's a good question.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Hadn't thought of it from that side, so I'm glad you came back to it. I believe you said, yeah.
I just wasn't getting the answers that I was seeking, but I probably wasn't asking the right questions either.
Yeah.
So that's my fault.
Well, sometimes the questions are, why did you do this? And sometimes that's a really nice answer, and sometimes it's like, oh, bad, you did wrong. you did video game bad.
But yeah, I got a few more details about it and a few more things like explained to me because I just didn't understand them. The fact that it's like a Minecraft server where you could decide if it's a playable server or a building server, and if your materials are readily there for you, or if you have to, mine all of them and craft them yourself. This game is kind of like that, where you could choose the difficulty level of your enemies and how frequently they spawn and the speed at which things transpire. Because you can fight things, but you can also blacksmith items and you can build fortresses, and those might take a more experienced builder. So you have to decide if you want to focus on that or if you want to join a server that has those there, or find a player that could do that for you, and then build your own community on this server to explore. And I was like, yeah, I know a lot about Conan, so like, where does it take place? Because I'm, the whole Hyborian age, there's tons of different countries. Like, do I get to start in Aquilonia, or do I start in Stygia, or, Samaria? And he's like, well, you're in the exiled lands because it's Conan Exiles, so you're exiled. You're in the exiled lands, to call it. And as you travel further north, essentially that's where the more difficult level creatures are and NPCs and whatnot. So there's no like defined place or area, and you can't leave because you have this magical bracelet on that'll kill you if you leave the exile lands. And so I was like, well, that's making more sense because there's so many settings to define where you are. And I was thinking like, well, how do I choose what country I'm in? The second guy explained to me like more of the concept of where it is that you're starting at.
I remember something from our initial conversation walking out of the building.
Oh, yeah?
Where you're like, I'm not even sure what my goal is.
Yeah, exactly.
And I turn to you and I go, as far as I'm concerned, Conan should only have 3 goals. They're right there on the surface.
We had a long conversation.
A conversation that will not be repeated, but was very enjoyable.
Yeah. So I'm a bit more optimistic.
Cool.
Turns out these are the same guys that also have done a previous Conan game, which was a multi-online player, which I thought had like already ended because a game will come out and then you stop hearing about it. And I was like, well, that means it's not running anymore, right? And he's like, no, it's still up. There's still plenty of players on it. Join that one and play that too. I was like, really? And they have like at least 3 or 4 different multi-online player games. And he's like, they're all running. they're all there. And I was like, no shit.
Buy them.
I guess I know what I'm doing next.
Thanks.
So scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Because
ultimately you got to play a lot of games that you probably wouldn't have played.
Oh, definitely not. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm so happy even just sitting here. I'd say I'd heard about half of those games. It sounded like largely positive experiences, though.
Because a lot of them were new things to me. If they were the right price, then I would get them to be like, I'll try this a couple times where I could show my friends or show you guys, or I could recommend some things. Like, one of you might get a kick out of Sombrero when we'd have a party night or something. But, like, we don't all need Sombrero. But at the same time, like, if you want to sit down and play a new version of something that's a classic to you, then Moonlighter would be a fun option for that. So, yeah. There's ones that, like, kind of have, like, more simplistic graphics and ones that have, like, way more advanced kind of, like, realistic 3D graphics. But I had fun. I met a lot of neat people. A lot of people wanted to give me their card. And I was like, I don't know what to do with this, but I'll take it.
And you finished it.
Yeah, I completed everything.
You beat the shit out of it.
It was close, too. Between ditching Acquisition Incorporated early, running down to get in Perception, and then not completing the demo so I could go up to Auntie Donna.
Right.
But did you guys have anything that you wanted to check out that you didn't get to?
For me, it's always Indie. Indie Mega Booth. We checked it out, but it is, maybe 5% of what was there.
Mhm.
I got to. Like there's this one game I got to. We played a bunch of them actually. JR and I and Colin jumped in for some of it. Like in our last hour and a half at the place, we really did cut a good swath into.
We were just like marathoning games.
Indie Mega. Like Semblance was a game that I played and I loved it. It reminded me of World of Goo a little bit, but you play as this little blob that can. All it can do is jump and then like dash into things, and it's a platformer, but you alter the environment. So like if there's a really thin area you need to get through, you can punch down on the ground to give yourself enough space to go under. But it was like when I play games like that and I look at it and I go, oh, there's so much I didn't touch. That was kind of my feeling. For me consistently, because this is year 3 now, Indie Mega Booth and Kickstarter Lounge are kind of those, I know I'm going to get something good here. Every single time I will walk away with a new idea, a new thing, a new person I met or something like that. So that was kind of my big, I wish I did more of that. Anyone else?
The only thing that I wish I could have attended was a panel, actually. It was Telltale's panel. I'm a really big Telltale fan, and they were showing off Guardians of the Galaxy. That would have been cool to check out. And I would love to hear from the Telltale team, because I love all their stuff.
You're a big fan of Telltale.
I'm a big. The only one I haven't played is the Minecraft game, but all the other Telltale games I'm all about. Very, very pro. So that would have been the thing. But even then, it's a panel. I could probably catch it online somewhere. I probably didn't have to be there.
It's hard to say that. It's hard to label regrets, because it's like, oh, I wish I did more Indie Mega Booth. I don't know when. I didn't really kill time while I was there either.
Yeah. We did so much.
Yeah, even when we'd have lunch, we'd eat for like 10 minutes and be like, all right.
We were efficient this
Yeah,
year.
I was going to say efficiency. I felt pretty efficient for the entire trip.
We were, I think, back to us, because you now have, because you guys did 2014, right?
Because of you.
Yeah. I bought the tickets and then couldn't go.
Yep.
So thanks, guys. But my first year, 2015, I spent a lot of time just wandering and looking, and that was not this year. This year was a lot of hands-on
Just go pick
time.
up and play.
Yeah, play games, watch games being played, like talk to people, make conversations happen. How about you, JR? Miss anything?
I deeply regretted not giving tabletop more attention. I think I walked through there once, and then it's one of those things that I kept saying, like, I need to go through tabletop again, and then I just didn't get to it.
It's overwhelming. There's a lot of games, and
and
it's harder to demo those.
It's the best problem ever, like ultimately. I can't be upset about a problem like that. Like, oh, there's too much to see. Damn.
With 4 of us, we could probably cover the entire convention if we organized, split up boxes, and used all 3 days. And even then, that's to get through the expo. Like, that wouldn't have gotten us through all the panels.
Yeah, that wouldn't have
gotten
do panels.
It is amazingly pleasurably
That'd be interesting
immense.
if next year we split it up into quadrants and did, okay, we're going to play
Assignments.
every game at PAX.
Jeez. We made a scavenger hunt.
Our own version.
Even right there, I wouldn't do that. Because it's these things, when you choose to get into a line, you're saying to yourself, I'm choosing to give up 5 games I could have played to play this one. And there's a lot of times that's the right choice.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, no, I did that. I'm so glad I did that. Like, we gave up essentially an hour and a half to wait in line for ACK Inc. I'm so glad we did that. That was wonderful. It was, we were so close.
We were like 2 hours, 3 hours in line for Mikey.
Yeah. But that was during a time when nothing else was happening either. So that was giving up.
All right. Okay, fine.
But that was giving up. That was giving up a tradition, though.
You're right.
That was the first night that we didn't do our restaurant.
Right?
Yeah.
Which kind of messed me up a little bit.
It was tough.
Yeah. That was rough.
But super worthwhile.
It was kick-ass. It was an awesome time.
There were games that I made note of because we had gotten emails about them, and I was like, oh, I want to go check that out. And then I never did until I was walking past them with no time remaining.
Of course.
Absolver was one of them.
Yep.
It's online, like, real-time
Martial
combat.
arts, multiplayer,
Yeah, that
Dark
looks pretty
Souls-ish kind of.
Yeah. But, like, fewer weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks cool. All the masks. Their booth was sweet.
Yeah, it was like this temple-looking kind of structure with masks on the sides. Didn't get to that. I did see Flipping Death, and I had made note that I wanted to try and play that. It looked very fun. The colors were neat. It was kind of cartoony. And it's where, as death, you try and inhabit people's bodies to make them die.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like that show Dead Like Me, except you take a more aggressive approach to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a game called Forts. It's basically, you're kind of like the pigs from Angry Birds.
Okay.
And you build your structure.
I love the description.
You're building this tower, this fort, this structure, but you also get to put devices in it that are like cannons or laser guns, and you also have to put in components to power those. And you're doing that, nonstop as your opponent does, and you each try to use your weapons or defenses to knock down your opponent's tower and like hit their reactor to make them explode.
Mm-hmm.
Which could go on for a long time until you knock out just the right thing to cripple them, until you get like more shots off and your cannons reload and that kind of stuff. That looked neat.
Can I do my rapid fire hit?
Do it.
Yeah.
With a couple, because I had something similar. So a lot of these are indie games, both electronic and physical, but I did want to give them just quick fist bumps in that regard. So this isn't super indie, but there's a board game developer called North Star Games, and I got to play a game called Say Anything, which is basically like a super customizable Cards Against Humanity. It's not as offensive, but it can be, because your cards, instead of picking a card out of your hand, it's little whiteboards. It's also got a cool voting mechanic, so it's a much more engaging game in that way. Not trashing Cards Against, but it's everybody is voting, but some people are voting in different ways. So the game that caught my attention from them is a game called Happy Salmon, though, and it's you buy the kit. So the kit is for one player, and then as many people who have these, you can play them. And there are 4 different cards inside there that there are multiples of each of these. There's and depending on the card that you draw during the course of this game, you have to find somebody who matches with it and then do something. So like if it's Happy Salmon, you slap your hands against their forearms to make it look like fish.
Okay.
And then you get to dispose of that card, and the first person to get rid of all their cards wins. So it's like switcheroo is one of them. So if 2 of you have switcheroo, you switch places and then drop the card. There's fist bump, there's high five. Super simple game. There's only those 4 cards.
Yeah.
But we were playing with when I tried it out, we were playing with 8 people, and it was a blast. It was really, really fun. The tough thing is, though, that you have to buy a kit for every person who wants to play.
Right.
So it's like a lot of games you buy and you're like, oh, now I can play with 4 people. With Happy Salmon, you buy it and you're like, okay, I can play by myself and anyone else who has this. But it was super cool and it was worthwhile. I got to do VR for the first time, and I got to do it with 2 different games. One was the Psychonauts VR experience, which was very non-action oriented, but I love the Psychonauts universe and Double Fine, and it was interesting in that regard.
I'm so glad that's still around.
Psychonauts?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that game is just brilliant.
It was revolutionary at the time.
Yeah.
And it hasn't gone away, and that makes me really happy.
It is Tim Schafer and the folks at Double Fine do terrible joke, but
Monkey Island?
They're game-changing games. They're gosh, Psychonauts stuck with me for a really long time. Very charming, cutesy games that have a very serious, dark edge and a message to tell and things like that. So I'm glad I only got to spend 25 minutes with it, which for a game like that is not a lot of time. And it was very passive storytelling rather than action. It was very exploratory. The action game I got to play was a game called Farpoint, which was very much demoed out just to do the little action pieces with it. But it was my first chance to use a gun in VR, and it was fun. I get it. VR is a good time. Strong recommend in that regard. We already talked about that one. Jerry, you got to play Badass Hero a little bit?
Yeah.
Which was it has a comic book aesthetic.
Yeah, it's kind of like the animation almost kind of reminded me of Braid a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially the character.
Yeah.
Yeah, the figure.
Yeah.
He definitely looked British.
It's kind of it's based off of building a comic book story, and it's you're a guy with a gun, you navigate through panels, and you go shooting and jumping, and it's from what I could see, I played it for a couple minutes, but you're kind of building the world as you go, if I understand that correctly.
Yeah,
see
you
here.
have the ability to travel between panels.
Yeah.
I was able to chat to the guy while JR was playing it, and I say that I can only think of one other game that does something like this, and it's 20 years old. And he goes, Comic Zone? I'm like, it is Comic Zone. If Brett's listening to this episode, he got excited. Like,
I saw a lot of ads for Comic Zone.
yeah, it was the back page of every comic book
Pretty
for about
much.
3 years. Blonde guy with sunglasses, like,
Really radical.
Yeah, it was a product of the early 90s without a doubt. So it has that, but it does it graphically much cooler. And it is more shoot 'em up than that game
Yeah.
is. And it takes place over different genres too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a game that I want more of. I had very limited because like it was at the end of Sunday.
Yeah, we were running.
And it was just like, okay, I'm going to play this, I'm going to play this, I'm going to play. It was very quick. So that's one that I wouldn't mind revisiting. What else was there?
And then the only one that I only touched on, and Jared got to play, and I got to play it really quick, was called Dimension Drive.
Mhm.
I vibed with this game pretty cool. It had an aesthetic similar to Ikaruga, and it was in a similar fashion with Ikaruga. That's all about polarities. So you have two guns you can use, and if you're using one gun, you can absorb bullets of a different color. So like light and dark. And for this one, it took place in 2 dimensions. I think you got to see this game too, Alex. You had mentioned you saw something similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you had to be mindful of what was happening on the other screen because there would be times that your screen had too many things going on and you had to swap over to the other dimension, but you still had to constantly be avoiding structure and stuff on there. I did not get it by the time we finished playing it. Like, we would just die, and the developer was there, and he's like, oh, yeah, it was rough. You got to keep an eye on things. And they're like, yeah. And I turn to JR, and I go, which one of us did that? I don't even know what went wrong. And, I mean, we are in the demo level. Like, it's... but it is a game that I want to spend more time with. Yeah.
I got a puppy from Atlas Reactor.
Man, I ended up looking up that game afterwards, and I love the artistic style of it. It looks cool. Yeah, I've been watching this, like, it's hanging out in the background. But your little puppy is my favorite character in this thing. Because he's a little puppy, and then he gets big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like laid out kind of like a chessboard, checkerboard. And there's other structures in the map, but like it's turn-based, but all the turns happen at the same time. So you can choose what your character is going to do at the same time everyone else is choosing. So if I want to shoot at Colin's character, he might dash out of the way before my bullet makes it to him. So maybe I'll try and choose to shoot where I think he's going to move to, and hopefully that will line up. A lot of like, it's really fun, it's colorful, it's kind of comic booky.
The characters remind me of the character designs from Battleborn. Like, they have a lot of personality, and they are very unique in their...
Yeah.
There's big ones, there's small ones, there's aliens, there's robots. Like,
Yeah. There's ones that make shields, there's one that fire guns, there's one that move really fast. And there's like wide area effects and lots of different things. It looks like it's a lot of fun.
I'm excited to check that out, though. It looks like it's got a sense of humor, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played a bunch of random stuff, like really quickly. Like, hey, this is open. I'm going to play this. This is open. Played. Joe was there with me. I played a quick. It was like on an iPad. It was like Floor Kids. Very reminiscent of Elite Beat Agents. If you ever played that on the DS,
I believe even the developers brought it up.
Yeah. It's tapping the screen at certain intervals. It's swiping and tapping at different times to keep your character dancing. It's like a beat, a rhythm battle game is how the card describes it. It was pretty fun. The music didn't, at least from what, maybe it was just loud in the convention center, but the music didn't quite sync up with the beat, so I was a little thrown off. It took some getting used to. Once I got the hang of it, though, it definitely got a little bit more fun, more easier, because it was a little frustrating at first, but ultimately it was fun.
I think it looked like, because it was available on systems besides the iPad, it looked like it would have probably run a little easier on some of those other systems. So, yeah.
Randomly played one like your kind of your typical old school side to side shoot 'em up Contra-esque type game called Hunt Down. Played it with Ken, our pal Ken, for a bit. Just randomly found it, picked up a controller. It was really fun. I really dug it. Played it for like 5 minutes. Just you shoot stuff. There's people who come on the screen and then you shoot them. and then you might get a better gun, and then you shoot with that gun, and you just blow everything up. It was I liked it a lot. It was just it was mindless. I'm shooting stuff. Dug it. I'm cool with that. Other than that, the rest of the games that I played was because of you guys. With the metagame and all the games that we had played over the weekend, like just all the fucking games.
Can we talk about metagame really quick?
We can talk about metagame really quick.
Love it.
So this was a game that was kickstarted. It was in the Kickstarter area. They were demoing it, and gosh, I love that Kickstarter area. Anyone who goes to PAX, make it a stopping point. You're going to find something nifty, something fun that's worth doing. And I saw this game, and Alex and I were there. We went on our first day. Like, we swung by there. Alex had to drag me out of there, and he's like, Joe, we can't spend time here. And he was right. And I didn't get mad, but I was confused.
We looked around the entire thing, and we both kind of like walked over to the merch table, and like I was like, "Oh, I'll get a plushie taco cat for my niece." And then I was like, "There's a bag that says it's full of poop," and like, if I know anything about Kickstarter and Cards Against Humanity, it might
Probably is.
It might be
There's
full
a
of
chance.
Nope, there's a game called Poop. It wasn't actually poop. It was good.
And we were all disappointed.
But that's where like metagame was there.
Yep. And so I watched when we were going to leave. It was actually a moment where I turned to Alex because the guy's like, "Do you want to play it?" I looked at Alex and go, "Can we?" And you're like, "We don't have time right now." And I'm like, "All right," but I said I was going to go back and check it out. I'm so glad I did. So it's a game that comes. It's in a case very similar to the Cards Against Humanity, like that sort of box. It has 200. I think it even lists them on here. 200 culture cards and 100 discussion cards. And these are just meant to be the fuel to play 10 different kinds of games. So, for example, you can take these, ignore the discussion cards, and just use the culture cards and play a game called History 101, which I've been calling Timeline accidentally. I don't know, because you create a timeline for it. But somebody plays a card, and every one of these culture cards has a year on it. And so you go around and try to guess where the cards go within the course of the year. So you might pull out a card that says Gangnam Style, and it's like, okay, well, and you put that one down, and it says 2012. And it's like, all right, cool. And then you pull a card, and it says Alien. And you're like, okay, well, I'm confident that the movie Alien came out before Gangnam Style. Lo and behold, 1979, you put that down. But then as you go around in a circle, you have more and more cards out there. So when you have Alien at 1979, and you have to put down Temple of Doom,
Blade
and it's
Runner.
like, oh, did Temple of Doom come out after? I'm pretty sure it did, but did it come out before or
The
something?
first Mad Max movie.
There you
I don't
go.
know.
First Mad 1985 was Beyond Thunderdome, as we learned, because Ken definitely knows. Shout out to Ken for he's great with his dates. He talks about unicorns. Man,
Less professional wrestling.
nothing about professional
No,
wrestling,
not at all.
actually. Completely off base on that. But that was one of a bunch of games that you could play. So I got to demo 3 of them while I was sitting there. Got to show a couple of them to the guys, and we had a great time with it. So that's a strong recommend. Got to meet the person who created it as well, one of the 2 creators, John, and he signed my box. That was really cool.
Oh, that's cool.
And I know you picked up a game in Kickstarter as well.
Yep.
Yep.
It didn't take me any time to decide to buy it. It was called Organ Attack, and I flipped through it, and it's like you get organs, and then they can get attacked by your opponents. And it's basically almost like teaching you about your own body.
We
and-
learned a lot.
And
I really want to
afflictions.
play that one again.
Yeah, because like I could attack your heart with cardiovascular disease, and that is now your affliction. And then the winner is the person who still has at least one organ remaining, while you try and knock out your opponent's organs. So we played it in the hotel room after the first night, and I got home and I played it with my niece. She beat me already.
So it's very similar to Flux, where there are a lot of cards that you can draw that just change the rules up really quickly. So you can be ahead, and frequently people were winning,
Yeah.
and then we're losing. We're in last place. Because you have like cards like Necrosis that just wipes out an organ.
Yep.
Just completely. And then you have like immunities that come up at the most inconvenient times. And,
Or you could steal someone else's organ.
yep.
There's a transplant card.
It was a really good
There's
time.
malpractice cards.
It's pretty badass.
It's I don't know what it is. Like there are times where I'll buy a video game and then have buyer's remorse, like maybe 30 minutes into playing it or something like
Yeah.
that. That almost never happens with physical games. Like it's one of those I feel like you just get a vibe so quick. Like with metagame, I knew. I was like, this game will be good. Like unless it does something horribly wrong, I'm going to enjoy this game.
I have to invest time to learn the games.
Yeah,
because
before you feel confident.
There's a few games that I've bought, but I haven't really like had enough confidence to like take it out to friends and be like,
right,
we're gonna play this now, because I still don't know what I'm doing.
Yep. Let's figure it out together. Well, that was the first time I brought House on Haunted Hill. Is that what that's called?
Betrayal
At House on the Hill. That's the first time I was so nervous showing that to you guys. Because I'm like, all right, there's 3 rule booklets. Buckle up. And it ended up being a really good time.
Hefty.
Yeah. They are weedy.
Organ attack is easier with more people.
Yes.
Because then you're not dumping cards as much.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you have so many organs where there's a chance your entire hand could just be for your own organs, and you don't want to cause afflictions to those.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
Or you could invent a new strategy and attack yourself. Maybe convince your opponent to attack themselves.
Smart.
Right?
My organ is a liability.
Let's see how that works out for you, Cotton. It's a bold strategy.
I don't know how much more else we have to talk about. There was one other game that I picked up that was called Haiku Warrior, and it's made by a guy who his most famous game at the time was called Drinking Game. And it runs with a very similar theme, but it's basically like a deck of cards that let you run a D&D campaign from 1 to 4 people. And I did play it against myself, and it was a lot of fun. And it's Haiku Warrior, so each of the cards has a haiku written on them, and he wrote me my own haiku, which I thought was really
It's beautiful.
nice.
Oh, that's neat.
But it was like when you hear people talk about the things that they made, and even especially the guy with Metagame, John, he wasn't trying to sell me on it. He was just like, "Let's play this game." And before we were done playing the game, I'm like, "I'm gonna go buy your game." See you in a little bit. And it was similar with this, where I just asked the guy, "Can you tell me a little bit about it?" And he told me about it, and I go, "Cool, I'd like to buy that from you." It is very low pressure.
Take my dollars.
I want to play it.
Yep. It was a good time against myself. I won and lost.
Proud of you and disappointed in you.
Yep.
Oh man, what else? Did anyone else have a game they wanted to mention before we?
I'm spent.
I'm out.
I hit all my big ones.
Oh god, it was so fun.
Played a shitload of games, man, which is really the idea of it. It's an enormous convention that's based around games and gaming culture, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And already counting down for next year. It shall be rad. I expect more, in the coming months, possibly. Hopefully, we'll be able to talk more about different things that deal with PAX and the goings-ons with PAX. But let's give some ratings, and then let's call it fucking quits, man. That's gonna be a night. Obviously, for me, it's pretty much the perfect show. It's just right there, It's as close to an A+ as you can get.
But not.
I mean, if like I'm trying to think of any reason as to why it wouldn't be. The weather kind of sucked, but that's not the show's fault. Struggling for things to find wrong with it. It was pretty much perfect.
And why even bother trying to look for wrong things, man? I'm right there with you. For me, I mean, it was fantastic.
Not an A+.
Not an A+. Not an A+.
Yeah. So Colin hated PAX this year.
Yeah,
it's official.
Weird.
No,
it didn't happen to him.
I didn't have that mind-blowing experience moment that I typically have, which isn't the show's fault. It's just I have to go out and snag it myself. But it's a great weekend hanging out with my best friends, like you said earlier. So many talented creators and developers all wanting to talk passionately about the things that they created and the things they loved. It's an amazing way to spend your time. I can't recommend it enough.
A+.
That's what I like to hear.
It's my favorite weekend of the year. It's so good. I feel like we might sound a little subdued right now, and a part of that is late, and a part of that is that we're still tired from PAX. It was so good, and there's going to be things that I talk about years from now that come along with it. I kind of get, Colin, where there's when you talk about those mind-blowing moments. I remember our first year where we went out and actually stayed around for a bit, and we got to meet the guy that designed a scene from BioShock Infinite. He designed the
Seth from Clay.
Yeah,
her running around the carnival. Right?
Yeah,
or the
when the girls just want to have fun and all that stuff, and it was just oh, you changed me, you influenced me. That was a really cool thing. And I didn't have anything like that, but I had more like more
Yes.
things that were small.
Fair.
Like the meeting Alec from Yacht Club, like that was
Yeah.
a formative experience for me. That was so cool, and I have a lot of those little things. Meeting the guy from Metagame, getting to shake hands with Chris Perkins, like all of those little tiny things were really, they amounted to a lot for me. So A+, there's nothing that comes close.
I'm gonna have to say an A for it not being like one of my regular gigs, because I'm just more used to Comic Cons.
Right.
There's still so much for me to do, and as much as you guys talk about like, well, you're there with all your you're there with your best friends, it's all your bros. You can go alone and still make friends, because like if you walk up to a booth and start playing a game, the developer or the programmer is going to be there to be like, hey, what'd you think? Someone's gonna like want to pick your ear about it and like ask you what you thought.
And they legitimately give a shit
Yeah.
because they're trying to make their game good and they want more people to play it. So if you say, like, that was fun, but the controls are kind of weird,
Yeah.
they might take that into account. Wow,
Right.
okay, so this guy didn't like the controls.
Or like when you say, what else is there?
Yeah.
Because like I only made it through 2 floors of this haunted house as a deaf girl who's seeing by echolocation. And I'm like, how do I keep going? And he's like, we have a lot more. There's 4 more stages. I'm like,
I'll feed you, baby bird.
it's their way to like, watch enlightenment and maze happen to people. So, yeah.
It's good.
It's truly a formative experience.
It's a damn good show. Gents, I appreciate you. I appreciate you going with me, dealing with me and my
Please. I love
constant PAX blathering.
No,
It's forever.
It's exciting. It's all part of the enjoyment.
Plathering.
You're going to,
Yeah.
blather.
And the thing about it is, it's nice that your friends are excited. Your friends are excited about something, you get excited. Yeah. So I appreciate. PAX wouldn't be the same if you didn't let me know that it was,
50
9
days.
months away.
Like
Hey, man.
Helga Pataki. 14 days, 6 hours, and 32 minutes
Until you
until
die.
PAX.
Oh,
Topical.
Next year. Just wait. I'm going to get real fucking annoying.
I'm gonna cosplay next year.
Cosplay as PAX. Just like a shining god.
Colin already identified my next cosplay, and he's so right.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a secret.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's fair.
it's a good one.
It's a good one,
You got to
though.
do it.
Yep.
Is it a night?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
All right. Gents, thank you so much for coming on, lending us your night once more to talk about the best weekend of the year. We hope everyone enjoyed our PAX coverage. Again, there's 2 of them this year, so if you haven't heard the first one, go fucking listen to it. And then listen to this one, and then get really excited for PAX next year, or even a different PAX if you're going to Australia or Prime, or excuse me,
West
Australia
now, yeah.
West or South. They're all throughout the year now. There's 4 of them, so go check one out. You're getting low in excuses as far as distance.
You're listening to us on the internet, so you have every information that we've talked about. You can go look up.
It's true.
If you think anything we've said sounded interesting, you have a chance to investigate it yourself.
Do it
Make it happen.
and check out a PAX show. That's it. That's all. I'm spent. That's all I got. Let's call it. Right.
Yep.
All right.
Cool.
Guys, thanks again for coming on. You're both my
My
heroes.
pleasure.
You both.
Thank you.
Everyone who met at PAX, thanks for putting on a great show. Yeah, that's going to do it. Till next time, I have been JR.
I'm Alex.
I'm Joe.
I was Colin.
And this has been episode 262 of Opinions May Vary.